Okay, this is our colored pencil cupcake. So before we start drawing, I want to make sure you have the correct colors. So our colors are going to be the orange, red, red. This is the golden yellow. We have the ocean blue. Then we have sky blue, warm gray. We have brown and black. So these are the colors that you need for the colored pencil cupcakes. So I'm going to move those to the side so we can finish drawing. Okay, so we started off with our basic drawing here of the bottom of the cupcake. And we're now going to continue with the top part of it. So we want to make the sort of muffin-like top here. And then we're going to move into the sort of yummy frosting part. So we start off making a cylinder, and we're basically going to be making kind of lumps of another cylinder in a sense. You want to make sure to keep your drawing very light. So we're going to do 3 of these sections, the top part being the thinnest. And then we will create our syrup on top of it. And here is the last part here. And remember, you have your drawing to go off of, or the copy of the original that you can look off of for the drawing section. Just looking to see if this is sort of even. Okay. All right. Make this a little rounder. Okay. We will go back after and create the separations in the cupcake holder. But we're going to add the cherry on top here. Like so. And then top part of the cherry. And we have a yummy cupcake so far. And now we're going to go back and create the separations or the folds in the cupcake part at the bottom here. So our folds are going to be slightly slanted. As we get into the middle, it starts to even out, about right here. And then they go into the opposite direction on this side. like so. And then also, you may have to change the shape a bit on the ends of your cupcake holder so that they are slanted. So if you notice, I'm going back now and making them a bit more slanted on either side. The other detail I want to point out is this little detail right here, where I've added just a little bit of a piece that is going behind the actual cake. And same here, because it makes it look three-dimensional. Just that little bit. Okay, so now we're going to go up here, and now that we've made our separations, we're going to make them curved at the top like this, because that's how they really are. Like so. And we have our cupcake. And now we just have to add the chocolate syrup. And so basically we are sort of kind of outlining the shape of our cupcake. But then we're adding some drips. So here's the first. I'm gonna kind of go around. And if you notice, the drips on the bottom, they literally look like they're sort of almost falling and relaxing. So they spread out, if you can think of them that way. So we're starting off at the bottom here, and then we'll work our way toward the top. This one is kind of bending a little bit before it relaxes, right? And then it spreads out a bit. We'll also go back and erase all of the lines of the cupcake so that those are no longer visible. This one is traveling a bit upwards. As it goes toward the right edge of the cupcake for our final drip here. Curves around. Now we're very aware of the bumps. And we've got one more drip over here. And then we have an actual sort of hole where the chocolate has sort of separated. And that is about, let's say, right here. Okay, and then we go back and just erase the lines that don't belong anymore. This is a little part of the cake part. Okay, and then we go back and just lighten up some of our lines here. Because we can now start our coloring. drawing. So now we're just lightening up all our lines, also checking everything to make sure that it's in the right place. You know what, there's one more sort of hole up here. Let's draw that before we continue with the color. Sort of shaped like that. Sorry I missed that one. Okay, and now we are ready for color. So we are going to start first with the cupcake holder. And this is where we need our two blues. So we're going to start first with our sky blue. And you can basically sort of trace the entire cupcake holder with this color. So we're tracing the top part, obviously the separations, like so. Now when we get to the bottom part, we also want to make it a bit more scalloped at the bottom, just ever so slightly. And don't forget on the side, our little cupcake part that we've created to make it look three-dimensional. So this is with our blue. This is the sky blue. And now we're going to start shading. So we go light at first. Basically what we want to do is have the folds in the middle be darker. So the way this works, the folds are the darkest, and then on either side of each section, it's also a little bit darker, like this, and then the middle is lighter. That's because of the way the light hits. So I'm going to show you again on this one. So I'm concentrating the color on the folded part. And then just like we learned with value and, you know, making things slightly darker, slightly lighter, this would be a lighter value here in the middle. And you can see that I'm leaving some of the spots in the middle of each section the white of the paper just a little bit. I go so light that you can still see the light of the paper. And then we'll go back with the darker blue. It's actually very relaxing. So if you notice, what I like to do is the darker parts first, and then you get lighter as you go in the middle of each of the folded sections. here's that fold again. Here's the end of our fold. And then we're also going to come down at the bottom, and we're also going to make the bottom of each fold, kind of outline it. And there's our first step. And then we're going to go back and get a little darker. We're also going to fill in the part or parts that we created here to make the cupcake look three-dimensional. So now we want to go back, outline a little more. And we're going to pick up our blue. This is the ocean blue. This is the darker part that we're going to be adding. And so we're going to add it to the middle parts of each of the sections. We're also going to add it to the top and the bottom. We're pretty much outlining with this, but then we're also going to shade with it because we don't want it to look like, I always say, a marker. You know, nothing in art really has line, even though we use lines because we have to. But in the real world, things don't really have lines. But we have to create lines in order to make it look realistic. And then we're going to come up at the top and get those scalloped edges. Okay. And now we're going to go into the dark part of the folds, and we're going to shade. So if you notice, what I'm doing here is I go up against the folded part here, and then I shade to the left of it, and I'm also going to shade to the right of it over here as well. Pretty much what we're doing is what we've already done. So see on this one, I'm doing the same thing we did with the sky blue. It doesn't have to be real dark. We are going to go back and make these parts a little bit darker where the separated folds are. So see, it's the darkest here in the folded part. It's the lightest in the middle of each section. And then when we go back and we make those separations a little darker, it's really going to pop. You can also add a little bit at the bottom of each one, each section. as well as doing a little bit of outlining there again. So as you can see, I'm taking care of the bottom first. Made a mistake line there. Okay, it's looking pretty good. But now we want to just add a little bit darker here. And if you notice, what I'm doing is I'm shading. It's not so much a line, but I'm sort of shading next to the line. And so you want to do that to each one. Again, remembering the dark part that you're shading is closest to where you created the darker line. Okay, and then here on the end, you can add a little bit of some dark on the end here because of the way the fabric is kind of folding. And then right at the top with the scalloped parts, you can redefine those just a little bit. Sort of redefining everything here. So there would definitely be a little bit darker shading at the bottom of each section, just a little bit. Okay, and if you want right now, you can also add with the warm gray, the slight shadow that's happening around it. And that is really just sort of a roundish shadow that's a little darker on the edges of each cupcake. Now what I'm doing is sort of making a shaded line where it's a little bit of a straight line, because it shows that the cupcake is on something. And then I start to shade in round circles. It's always darker here and here. And then it gradually gets very light. And I'm shading in sort of an oval shape around the bottom of the cupcake to meet up with this side. You can go a little bit darker underneath the cupcake. Just a little bit. Okay. Okay, and there's our shading. So now we go back to the cupcake as we start to go around. We now need our golden yellow for the cake part. So with this, we're going to lightly shade this section. You can sort of outline a little bit of where the cake is. And so with this, same idea, where it's darker in front of us, right, where the scalloped edges are. It's also darker, the line where the frosting starts. And then in the middle it's lighter, so you can use the white of the paper as that lighter value. So we're going to go darker right along the edge of this line here. So we shade a little darker in between the chocolate syrup, and then come back down in the sections of the cupcake holder and make it shaded a little darker there as well. We can also add a little bit of orange here too. So let's get that. So the orange that we want is yellow orange. And so this is just going to add just a little bit of some shading. We're going to add this in the parts where we want a little bit more of some darkness. So you notice I'm not concentrating too much on it. It's just adding another sort of layer, going around the drips. And then again along the edges of each of the scallop parts, and it just gives it a little something. Now if you want, you can go in the middle here and kind of add a few little circles for the spongy texture of the cake. Very fine, kind of fine circles. Just going to add a little more of some shading here. Okay, and then we have that part finished. And as we go upward, these sections underneath the syrup are also a little bit golden. So same thing, we're going to kind of outline around where the syrup drips are. This is with the golden yellow. And also, again, where the lines are. And so we're also remembering to go in the middle of these sections because these are openings to where the frosting is. Or openings where the syrup is. This is underneath the syrup. And then we shade very lightly. So again, darker parts being closer to the bottom and to where it separates. But we're using the white of the paper. Same thing at the top of each section. So this is a section. We're talking about this shape as being a section. And then this shape being a section, and same here. So again, for each section, it would be a little darker at the bottom, and then also at the top of each section if it's exposed. We have a little bit darker here and there. And then we want to grab our brown. Just ever so slightly. We're going to go into the darker parts of the line, and we're just going to kind of outline those and lightly shade, very lightly shade on top of what we just did. So again, see how subtle that is? Very subtle, just a little bit. Do the same up here. And here, very subtle. Doing in each of the sections. Like so. Now we also have to draw on our sprinkles, but I like to do those with the colors that we're going to be using. So our sprinkles are mainly the blue, the two blues again, and the reds. You also want to make sure that you have a sharp point on all of your pencils. So if you want to take a few seconds in order to make that happen, sharpen up your pencils. You can do that now. I think that one's sharp enough. You can add some other colors if you want. If you want to add some green. These are the sprinkles. So we have a sprinkle here at the top. I'm going to go in a little bit closer. So our sprinkles are this shape, and then when we shade them, just like with anything else, there's a dark part and there's a little bit of white for the shine right there on the end. Let's create another one here. kind of fun to create the sprinkles. And let's see, another blue one happening right here. And again, it doesn't have to look exactly like mine. You can choose where you want yours. And maybe a blue one right here. Kind of hidden a little bit. And maybe one more kind of falling here. Like so. And then we're going to switch to our orange red, or red orange. Let's see, let's make one here. So basically you want one part of the sprinkle to be a little darker. Let's add one here. It's kind of coming off to make it look realistic. Coming off the cupcake, I mean. It's kind of stuck on there. And I think, let's see, let's do one here. And I think there's one here. So again, you can add green. I'm just doing blue and red for now. Let's see, there's a few more over here. Let's do another here. Maybe one that's right underneath this one. Okay, and then we want to go back with the blue and just make it a little darker around the edges. So we're kind of outlining. This time it's okay to kind of outline, but then do a little shading so that it doesn't look unrealistic. Remember, you want to keep the white of the paper on part of each sprinkle. Okay, and now it's time for our chocolate sauce. And so we're going to start with orange, and you're probably thinking, that's not the color I was thinking. You're probably thinking brown, but there is some orange in it as well for the lighter parts. So we're going to start off with the lighter parts, and basically we're going to outline again all around the syrup with our orange. Let's remember our drips as well. and also our separations. Okay. We're going to go to our darker parts first. So at the bottom of the drips, or near the bottom of the drips. First we're going to, over here, we're going to make the part of the drip that is starting to relax, make that a little darker. And then we're going to shade. So same thing with the drips. There is a shine to syrup. So we want to use the white of the paper for that. So for instance, over here, I'm going to leave the white of the paper a little bit outward, this part there, so I'm just pointing to it. We're going to go up on the left here. And so it's always darkest where there is a separation here, like a line, or I should say, it's really a plane change. Different plane meaning the shift of a direction of the way a form is happening. So for instance, a plane change, this is starting to curve, right? This has volume, this section. So it would be darker here at the bottom, get a little bit lighter as the form starts to go this way. And then it would be darker again in the crevices, or towards the crevices as well. And we have some shiny parts here. So I'm drawing those in, especially around the drips. There's going to be some shiny parts on this drip. So again, the way we do that is leaving the white of the paper. And here I've made sort of these little squares. That's the shine. And same with the drip here. See, I've made a little part there that is shiny. We're going to do that on a lot of these drips. The way you can think about it is go around each section of the drips with your shading, and then fill in a little bit, and then leave the white of the paper as either a square or a version of a square. There's two here. Now we're going to come up to this section and we're going to add shading to the bottom of that section as it goes around. It's going to get a little darker here on the right side, along with the drip. And we'll be covering this in brown as well. And then at the top here, a little bit darker. And you can see I've left a bit of the white of the paper. And now I'm going back and just making the creases a little darker with the orange. And we're going to go in with our brown and then finally our black. So obviously you want to take your time with this. I'm kind of doing a faster version in the sense of, you know, for the video's sake, but you want to take your time. So if you need to pause the video, which you probably will for each section, feel free to do that. So our next step on the syrup is to now grab our brown. And we're going to be outlining with this brown, and we're going to be shading on top of the orange. The orange is the lightest part of the syrup, so that's our base color. And our brown is going to be our medium and darker tones. And then we're going to add a little bit of black shading to it as well, because chocolate can get really dark. So let's outline first. We're going to start at the top. So we're going to outline around the shape. And just take your time. We're also going to be outlining around each of the sprinkles as well. And let's not forget the drips. And then also, remember each of the sections here that separate. And then the parts that are open where the cupcake cake is showing. Okay. And now we shade. So we're going to shade a little bit darker on the top here. We're going to go down to the next section. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to shade everything sort of a medium. Now remember, actually, I have an idea. Let's first outline each of the sprinkles in brown. So you're going on the outside of your sprinkle color. And it's just where it's hitting the syrup. And it doesn't have to be a real dark line. We just want to define the chocolate around each of the sprinkles. I think I got all of them. Did I get this one? Okay. Oh, and this one up here. Okay, now let's do some light shading with our brown. Now remembering, in the lighter parts that you've shaded, especially the white of the paper showing, we're not going to shade there. We are slowly building up our values. So we always start light, and then we add our mid-tones, right, which are our middle shaded parts. Middle meaning not the darkest, but not the lightest. And you should already be able to see some definition in your cupcake at this point. Okay. Now we're going to go even darker. So we start back up at the top. Remembering to go around your sprinkles there. And we're now getting a bit darker. So where we get a bit darker, again, is in each separation of a cupcake level. Also along the edge of each cupcake section. So here's the first one done for the most part. Let's go to the second one and outline again. And we're going to shade dark along the edge. And then we start to shade a little bit lighter, but not by much. And remember to define, or you have to probably redefine, around each of the sprinkles. So your liquid is going to be darkest where it's separating. So here's where it's separating, right? So we're going to concentrate around the edge of that shape. And then here we have some more. We're going to add a little bit of shading there. But there again, here's where it's separating. So we shade a little darker. As we continue across, we're starting to get into the drips. And our drips are going to be shaded really dark at the bottom of each drip, and then shaded a little lighter as it goes up. Now, as we see separation here, we're going to go darker and also go darker around your sprinkle. Another separation. So we're building up the color here. I'm going to move over to the left here as we shade. Again, you're going a little darker around where the syrup, the chocolate syrup, is separating, and then a little on the bottom here. So here's where it's separating, it's moving, and then where it pulls, this part right here is also going to be dark. Then you shade toward the bottom of the drip here, and remembering again to outline your sprinkles. There's 2 sprinkles here, outlining them. I'm shading around a little darker with the brown, and we'll have a final part where we add a little more darkness, and then we're going to add black. But again, very subtle the way we build up the color and the shading. We do that because it's easier to go light to dark than it is to erase colored pencil. Here I am again with a sprinkle. And here's the edge of that drip, so I'm going to outline, make it darkest in the part that it's, falling onto the cupcake section. And then I shade a little darker in that area. And then as I go up, remembering there's a shine here on the cupcake, on the syrup actually. And then again, going a little darker where it's relaxing here. Define this part a little more. Okay, and then we're finally going to go in with more pressure with our brown here. So really going to concentrate on these sections. So now I'm staying close to the bottom section of each part of the cupcake and the top. So for instance, here on the second part along the edge of the cupcake, and then going down to the bottom and adding some really dark shading. And then I'm going to do the same as the liquid starts to go around. There'd be shading here. Again, where it kind of gets caught in this section of overflow. And then we can make our drip a little darker. And now I'm coming around again to this side and making it darker, right where it's separating. And then again, where it opens. We're going to continue on this level. So again, making it dark where it's falling. You can outline your liquid a bit more. So here we are going into this drip. You can even make the drip, a little bit of liquid kind of congealing right there. Outlining your drip. and also right around your sprinkle. You're going to go into the next drip or next section of liquid. Remember to outline and color in where the drip is relaxing, right? And it's starting to pool. Okay. We're now going to continue on the other side, and again, really outlining. We are going to go back, like I mentioned, with black. And now we're in this final section where we outline again. So we're doing an outlining and shade, if you notice. We outline and then we shade so that it doesn't look like a complete outline in sections. We shade up where the liquid is falling on the top, like so. Okay. And now we pick up our black. I also just realized I forgot the green for the stem, so we will add the green for the stem of the cherry when we're done. So our black. This is going to define our chocolate once and for all. So this is reserved for the darkest parts, meaning the shadows. So around the bottom or side of each sprinkle. So we'll do that first. Each sprinkle. Again, mostly around the bottoms. But if there's one, like right here, this one is kind of off to the side. I like to pick the left side here. And I think we got all of the sprinkles. I did this one, yep. Now we're going to outline in the center of where the syrup is falling. Right, so right in that crease. Another crease. Let's not forget our drips. There's some creases there. And then we're going to outline ever so slightly the outside of the chocolate. If you notice, it's very subtle, as it should be, right? It's just giving it a little bit of darkness. So we're outlining the entire shape of your chocolate syrup. Then we'll add some final shading. And literally the finishing touch will be the cherry. The cherry on top. Okay. Now we're going to add some darker shaded spots. So we're going to come over here on the left side. We're going to shade on top of the brown, staying toward the edge of the chocolate. Now if you notice, it's not real black. It's sort of shaded black. We're staying here on the left at first. There's our first drip done. We're going to continue down each drip like this as we shade. So here we are back at the top, shading a little more, the black. This time we're staying toward the opening of the syrup, and here we're going to use the black along the edge of the syrup and sort of underneath where the cupcake is showing. And see what that does? That makes it look like the syrup is truly on top of your cake. We're going to do the same thing with all of these openings of the cupcake where the syrup is on top of it. So continuing on, we've done this part. We're going to come over here, come to the left. And so what I'm doing is just very lightly kind of tracing around on the cupcake side, sort of making another shadow is what we're doing. All right, we're continuing right underneath all this, because basically there would be a slight shadow under all of this. Right here, we want to just add a little bit of shading. All right, and here we are going around again. Right here, we can add a little bit of darkness right where it's pooling, and we will come back and shade that. Go around. And this drip here, you want to make sure to get nice and dark in this part that's dripping as we continue up the right side. And now we're going to add some shading with the black around the bottom of each section. So here we are going and adding the darkest parts just right above or below the section that is sort of splitting. So here's the first part. Now we're going to go to the next section. Add some shading. We're going to go into the syrup now, but we're going to go around toward the bottom again of where it separates, right? So here. basically where the liquid is falling and pulling, and then around toward the edge is where it's going to be a darker shading. So here we are coming up against another section. So we redefine that line, right? And then we go around. We have this drip here, and it's going to get really dark right where it's starting to separate. And then in the drip itself, I'm going to make this drip a little more drippy. And then here again, we've got that separation, so we need to redefine it, and then underneath it, make it a little darker. We continue with that shading down the side and meet up again where it's starting to go into the cupcake again. And then again, on the left side of the drip. Like so. And then we're finally going to get to this section as we finish off the darker parts. So we're now going to go again in the part that falls, the liquid that falls in the crevice. Right here, it would be a little darker because of the way that the liquid is falling, kind of separating. So we're going to make this section a little bit darker. And then here are our sections that are shiny. So we want to redefine those with our pencil. This section here, we're going to make darker along the edge. And then here again, there's the crease, right? And along the edge again on the right side. Here's this one. So it's going to be a little dark. Again, here is the crease. Darkest along there, and then along the sides, and even as it bends here. And then on the other side here. Make it really dark. And again, as it goes into the crease. And then we have a little bit of shine here. I covered up a little bit because I'm not quite sure what I was doing with that one. But I like it better this way. Okay, and you can go around and make sure things are darker. I'm gonna make this drip a little bit darker here. Add a little bit of then finally, if you have any parts that you want to add a little more shading with your chocolate, or I should say your brown, I like to kind of do that up here. Just a little bit. Okay. Let's grab that green before I forget for the stem. So we're going to grab the dark green, but it's actually called green. So we'll do the cherry first, but you want to grab the green for the stem and put that aside. We're going to grab orange first. So the colors we're using for the cherry are going to be orange, red orange, and red. And then we're actually going to use a bit of blue for the darkest part. So we're going to draw our shine part first. That's over here on the right. So we're going to outline with our orange. And then we're going to outline the cherry and start to fill that in with our orange. So you should be filling it in lighter or medium, kind of medium light. And then we're going to start to get a little darker on the left side with our shading. And also on the right side in a curved fashion, because our cherry is curved. And you're going to switch then to your orange red. And you're also going to outline with your orange red. You're going to start on the left side, and you're going to get a bit dark with your shading on the left side, and then you're going to gradually go lighter, and you're going to get really light. You're covering over the orange, also making sure to go around your highlight here for the cherry. So now your cherry should be kind of orangey red. And you're going to get a little darker here at the bottom with your shading. So all across the bottom. A little bit on the top. And then you're going to ever so slightly shade really light in the part that we left as the white of the paper for the shine. And then you're going to grab your red. And you're going to start to go a little darker at the top on the left. Oops. And also, you're then going to go into the left side down this whole section. And then on the right at the bottom, some shading. And then you're going to grab your blue. This is your ocean blue. Now this is going to be very subtle. You're going to come over on the left and you're going to very lightly shade on the bottom, on top of the red, bottom of your cherry. You're going to go up, kind of start to do a little bit of an outline, and you're going to shade around on top, also redefining the left side here by doing a little bit of an outline. You're going to shade and you're going to get really light as you go towards the white part of the cherry here. Then you're going to come over to the left side and just shade a little bit the bottom of the cherry. You can outline it ever so slightly on the right side just to define the cherry a little bit. And then we're finally going to move to our stem, which is going to be green and black. And basically you're going to shade darker at the bottom of the stem to make that stem area, it's kind of triangular. See that? I kind of made like a triangle. And then we're going to lightly trace where we drew in pencil on one side, and then at the top we're going to make sort of like a rectangle, and you see where I shaded a little darker here at the bottom of it. And then we trace around the other side very lightly with our green. And then we're going to lightly fill in the middle of the stem parts, but the darkest parts are along the edge. And then we're going to switch to our black. And we're going to start off the stem part, or this little part, and kind of make it a little darker. And then as we go up, trace just a little bit along the edge, and we're adding some dark with the black as we go upward toward the tip of the stem. And that's going to be shaded on the left side of the stem with the black. And then traced. Gets a little dark here, up at the top. And again, you can go a little darker here at the bottom of where the thin part meets the bottom of the cherry. And if you want, you can add a little more dark green. I like to leave the white of the paper in maybe around the top here for some shine. And we now have our finished cupcake. You know, you can go back and make some things a little bit darker For instance, I'll go back here with my brown, just add a little more shading, and then even around the parts of the cupcake here, I'm going in with brown ever so slightly, just shading a little bit with the brown to kind of define where those sections are happening, but you don't have to. Just adding a little bit of some shading with the brown. And voila. I hope you take a picture and send these to me, or I will see them in our next session. So thank you so much for doing this video along with me of the colored pencil cupcake.